Israeli airstrikes continued to pound Gaza early Tuesday, killing dozens of people in the besieged enclave's south, where Israel told civilians from the north to seek shelter ahead of an expected ground offensive. Daniel Rao reports.
Wounded people were rushed to hospital after heavy Israeli airstrikes outside the southern Gaza cities of Rafah and Khan Yunis. Bassem Naim, a senior Hamas official and former health minister, reported that 27 people were killed in Rafah and 30 were killed in Khan Yunis. In addition, health authorities said about 1,200 people across Gaza are believed to have been buried under the rubble, alive or dead. Israel has carried out unrelenting airstrikes against Hamas-ruled Gaza since the group's attack on southern Israel last week killed 1,400 people. Many Israelis and citizens of other countries were taken captive and brought to Gaza by Hamas. The Israeli strikes have killed at least 2,778 people and wounded 9,700 others in Gaza, according to the health ministry there. As Israel masses troops on Gaza's border in preparation for an anticipated ground attack, it has told more than 1 million people in the northern half of the enclave to flee to the southern half for their safety, even though Hamas has told them to stay put. While tens of thousands have fled south, the United Nations says there is no way to move so many people without causing a humanitarian catastrophe. The United Nations says 60% of Palestinians are now in the approximately 14-kilometre-long area south of the evacuation zone, with more than 1 million having fled their homes. The UN added hospitals are expected to run out of generator fuel imminently, meaning life-saving equipment like incubators and ventilators will stop functioning, putting thousands of lives at risk. At the Rafah crossing, Gaza's only connection to Egypt, truckloads of aids were waiting to go into the tiny, densely populated territory. Trapped civilians, many of them Palestinians with dual nationality, were hoping desperately to get out. International mediators were trying to reach a ceasefire to open the border, which shut down last week after Israeli airstrikes. An agreement appeared to have been reached on Monday, but Israel denied reports of a ceasefire in Rafah, which would be needed to open the gates. On Tuesday morning, they were still closed. An Egyptian official said on Tuesday that Egypt and Israel agreed that the aid convoys at the border would travel into Israel for inspection at the Kerem Shalom crossing between Gaza and Israel. The aid would then be allowed into Gaza. The official said a brief humanitarian ceasefire would take place and foreign nationals would be allowed to exit Gaza via Rafah. The war that began on the 7th of October has become the deadliest of 5 Gaza wars for both sides. Daniel Rao, TV News.
The Consul General of Israel in Hong Kong held a press conference today. Consul General Amir Lati said Israel is determined to neutralize the military capabilities of Gaza ruling party, Hamas. He added Gaza residents were given time to move from the north to safer areas of the enclave. A Hong Kong-based pro-Palestine group said one day is not enough time for 1 million people to evacuate. Timothy Lee tells us more.
The ripples of war in the Middle East have made their way to Hong Kong. TVB News Today spoke with both the Consul General of Israel in Hong Kong and a locally based pro-Palestine group to find out more about the conflict's effect on the city and the mainland. Before the press conference at the Israeli consulate, reporters were first shown videos documenting alleged atrocities committed by Hamas against Israeli civilians. Israeli Consul General in Hong Kong, Amir Lati, said the Israeli state is determined to cripple Hamas's military and that Hamas deliberately hijacked Israeli attempts to help Palestinian civilians.
Our aims at the near future is to destroy the Hamas terrorist capabilities. We do warn citizens to evacuate it from all areas. Hamas is the one that cynically used them to launch his terrorist attacks against Israeli townships.
Lati said Hamas militants launched the attack despite Israel recently relaxing border restrictions for Gaza residents. The Israeli CG also briefly commented on China's response to the war.
There were some discussions between Chinese officials and Israeli officials. I think that the barbarian slaughtering of 1,300, the kidnapping of 200 innocent civilians, of babies and elderly, should require condemnation from all the international community, let alone from our friends.
In the press conference today, the Israeli Consul General in Hong Kong stressed that Israel's war against Hamas is not a religious conflict with the Islamic world. He also said the Israeli people wish to coexist peacefully with their neighbors in the Middle East. Meanwhile, a pro-Palestine group in Hong Kong, United for Free Palestine, said the Israeli statements on offering humanitarian assistance for Gaza residents are unrealistic.
Past Friday, when Israel said you have 24 hours to leave the north of Gaza, go to the south, which frankly is very offensive. Even the UN says this is impossible. You can't physically manage that. More than 1 million people, how can they manage that in 24 hours? Most people are not aware. But as they begin to become aware, as they begin to learn about it, generally the public would side with Palestine.
The group's spokesperson added that a military conflict would only prolong the suffering of both Israelis and Palestinians.
For them, the best to do is find a political solution and try to proceed towards peace. Military action will not lead to peace. America tried and failed after 20 years, more than $2 trillion spent in Afghanistan.
Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Locally, nominations for this year's district council elections began today. Candidates from several parties wasted no time in registering. 9 representatives of the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong, or DAB, will run in the geographical constituency elections for the Islands and Hong Kong Island District Councils. Supporting the candidates were National People's Congress Standing Committee member Starry Lee, as well as DAB Chairman Chan Hak Kan. 6 candidates from the Hong Kong Federation of Trade Unions joined the race in a number of districts across Hong Kong Island. The Court of Appeal said same-sex couples have the right to rent and own public housing in the city. The court also said the Housing Authority's policy is unconstitutional and unlawful as it bars same-sex couples from equal housing rights. The ruling came after the Housing Authority launched an appeal concerning 2 earlier cases. Mimosa Ngai reports.
Rulings by the Court of Appeal represent the latest legal status for the housing rights of same-sex couples in the city. The first case is about a gay couple who are permanent Hong Kong residents but were married overseas. The 2 men hoped to apply for a public housing unit in the city. However, their request was initially rejected by the Housing Authority, saying that marriage does not meet the definition of couple under the public housing policy. Meanwhile, the other case involved another couple who were denied joint ownership of a home ownership scheme unit by the HA. The Court of Appeal ruled that same-sex couples should have equal rights in renting and owning public housing. In a written judgment, the 3-judge panel said allowing same-sex couples to apply for public housing would not affect the rights of heterosexual couples to use public resources. The judges said the waiting time for public housing for heterosexual couples is not a right protected under the Basic Law. The length of the waiting time depends on the number of available units and the number of applicants, the judges added. Hong Kong Marriage Equality, a local NGO, said the ruling shows clearly that public policy should protect everyone from unfair treatment and discrimination owing to their sexual orientation. Mimosa Ngai, TVB News.
Welcome back to TVB News. Russian President Vladimir Putin has arrived in Beijing for the 3rd Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation, which opens tomorrow. He's expected to meet host President Xi Jinping for bilateral talks. Russian President Vladimir Putin flew into the Beijing Capital International Airport on Tuesday morning. He was greeted by Chinese Commerce Minister Wang Wentao. Russian media reported that Putin will attend the forum's official opening reception hosted by President Xi Jinping. Putin is also expected to hold talks with the leaders of Vietnam, Thailand, Mongolia and Laos. Putin is expected to speak after Xi during the forum on Wednesday and will meet with the Chinese leader for bilateral talks later that day. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres also arrived in Beijing to attend the BRF. Guterres has previously hailed the Belt and Road Initiative as a very important opportunity for the world. Earlier this morning, President Xi met with Kazakh President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. Xi called for joint efforts to expand cooperation. She noted a sound, stable and vibrant China-Kazakhstan relationship is conducive to the development and revitalization of the two countries, as well as regional peace and stability. Tokayev, meanwhile, said China will always be a reliable and trusted partner and friend for Kazakhstan. He said he's willing to strengthen communication and cooperation with China. President Xi also welcomed Chile's President Gabriel Boric. Xi said Chile has always been at the forefront of China's relations with Latin American and Caribbean countries. She then met with Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, calling Ethiopia a key participant in the Belt and Road cooperation. She said the two sides should establish an all-weather strategic partnership which offers an opportunity to advance common development and win-win cooperation. Meanwhile, the CEO conference of the Third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation kicked off in Beijing today. Some 1,200 participants gathered at the China National Convention Center for the CEO conference today. Vice Premier of the State Council, He Lifeng, said that since the Belt and Road Initiative started 10 years ago, there's been bilateral investment of over $380 billion involving many countries. He noted that China is willing to expand market and trade with all Belt and Road regions. Chief Executive John Lee noted the number of regional headquarters set up in Hong Kong by countries participating in the Belt and Road Initiative between 2017 and 2022 has doubled from 83 to 168. Lee noted that Hong Kong, as Asia's world city, serves as a key link for the Belt and Road Initiative. He added the SAR is committed to providing enterprises and economies in the Belt and Road regions with high-quality professional services. Lee said, "I cordially invite all entrepreneurs here to come to Hong Kong to set up your Belt and Road offices and drive more high-standard, sustainable and high-quality development projects." Hong Kong athletes recently won a record 53 medals at the Asian Games in Hangzhou. The chief executive of the Hong Kong Sports Institute, Tricia Leahy, said on TVB's Straight Talk program, the critical factor for the success of local athletes at international events is government investment.
If you can't train your athlete in a world standard venue, you're missing a major critical success factor. Now, we're fortunate at the Hong Kong Sports Institute that the government has funded us to have all of the world standard venues that we need. As more new sports coming in, I'm confident that the government will make the right decision in terms of investment in those sports also to ensure that that critical success factor is not becoming the major weakness.
Leahy said even the tiniest of margins can make a difference between winning and not winning a medal. She added athletes now use the help of science and micro-technologies to sustain high performance. The Institute chief added that athletes can act as role models for young people and help develop social cohesion in the city. The Canton Fair in Guangzhou is attracting a record number of almost 28,000 exhibitors from 43 countries around the world. Sakura Ip has more.
Electric vehicles, solar panels and batteries. The 20-day Canton Fair dedicated one of its main displays to showcasing products powered by new energy. The export of these products experienced fast growth by some 40% year-on-year and reached nearly 799 billion renminbi in the first 3 quarters. A buyer from Jordan found the price of the electric vehicles quite reasonable.
For the Chinese production, almost we can compare with any other brand. It will be similar, typical 90%. But actually, to come to China, it's more, we can say, more easy to come to China and choose and find what you want. The price is not too high, it's not too low and not too high. The specification and the quality is really good. If we need pay from another brand, we need to double this money.
An electric car exhibitor said the industry's supply chain has been improving in recent years. He added Chinese companies are competitive on the global stage.
The biggest challenge of selling this kind of huge electric truck is the stability of the electricity supply in other countries. So far, this truck has been sold to Korea and countries in Middle East and South America.
Solar panels are another highlight of the section. A Brazilian resident of Guangzhou came to purchase some for companies in his hometown.
the quality in China is the best one, you know, because you have the technology. So I love the Chinese engineers, you know, so they take the product, they improve it.
A solar panel company said the fair provided a great platform to meet customers from Southeast Asia, Middle East and Central Asia, which provides solid impetus for market expansion. Sakari Ip, TVB News, Guangzhou.
And that's the news. Thanks for watching.